Lin Xiaobai felt that he was probably bad enough to travel through the game even if he played a broken game. As his eyes closed and he came from his dog-like rental house to this casas, where birds do not shit. He didn't even get any golden fingers, but instead became a waste of firewood that everyone in the town disliked. Without background and no strength, even the big guys who sell sucking buns on the street can easily tease him 2 sentences, roll far away, don't be too jealous. This day, Lin Xiaobai, as usual, was swaying on the town with his stomach, trying to fill up the scum that others don't want. As a result, when he walked to the market, he heard the sound of horse hooves. Then several guys wearing floral whistle armor rode over the horse. The man with a facial hair on his head roared, "Lin Xiaobai! Stop!" Lin Xiaobai's heart skipped a beat and he turned around and saw that it was over. It was Duke Carl's subordinate. This helper asked him for trouble for 2 days. He said, Duke is not shy about you, and living is a waste of energy." He didn't dare to stop, so he ran away. Who am I going to provoke, whom I'm going to mess with? Wasn't it just that I accidentally hit your Duke's horse last time? As for this revenge? Stop talking, if you won't beat you up today, we will write our names backwards. The leader, named Buck, was covered with his face, and he caught up with him with a whip. Lin Xiaobai ran so hard that his legs were almost cut off, but he could match Ma's speed at all. He was forced to a dead end in just a few steps. Run, waste. Let's try another one. Buck turned over and held an iron stick in his hand, and surrounded Lin Xiaobai in the middle with a few subordinates, with a smile on his face. They didn't even look at Lin Xiaobai as a human being, just like a cat or a dog. Lin Xiaobai gasped heavily, leaning against the corner of the wall, and his brain was crazy about changing his mind. If you can't beat it, you can't escape it. If you get beaten up, you will probably have to explain your life. He snatched a smile that was harder than crying. Dear brothers, can you tell me if you don't act? I'm so tired, I'll break up after a punch. Oh, I'm still begging me. Buck sneered, and the iron stick in his hand hit the ground, but I'm in a bad mood today, and I'm just taking you out. Brothers, give it to me. Seeing that several big Han were about to take action, Lin Xiaobai looked in his heart and shouted subconsciously, wait. Can you hear me laughing before beating someone? Buck was stunned and then laughed, just? Okay, waste, let's have fun before you die, tell me. Lin Xiaobai's brain twitched, and didn't know where the spirit came from, so he couldn't speak out. Do you know why Duke Carl always wears that green hat? Because his head is as green as a grassland, and wearing a hat just covers it so that everyone can't laugh. As the voice fell, Bucks were stunned at first, and then suddenly a scroll sounded, laughing so hard that he leaned back and forth. Buck covered his stomach, and the iron stick fell to the ground, laughing so hard that his eyes were flowing. Ha ha ha, green hat, top grassland, ha ha ha, I'm so laughing. The other men were not much better, and they were so happy that they squatted on the ground, pounding their thighs, unable to breathe. One of them was so smiling that his face was red and his neck was thick, and he shouted in his mouth, No, my stomach hurts. Lin Xiaobai was stunned when he watched the scene. What's going on? What's going on with this help? Is this funny joke? Although his mouth is still pretty smooth, the effect is too scattered, and he smiles like he is taking medicine. Just as he was stunned, a crisp female voice suddenly came from his ears, with a slight smile. Yee, little baby, your mouth is quite straightforward, continue to say, don't stop. Lin Xiaobai was startled and looked around, but he didn't see anything. Just as he was surprised, the voice sounded again, don't look for it, I'm Lily, your good goddess. That's my blessing to you just now. Speaking can make people laugh, how about that? Is that so? What? Blessings? Smile? Lin Xiaobai's brain was a little bit unrest, but it wasn't the time to think too much. Bucks were still smiling and the opportunity was right in front of him. He opened his mouth again and tried to make another cut. Hey, brother Buck, your armor is so good. I just don't know if the running will be as slow as the Ugrin when putting it on. Ha ha. Ugh. I'm so laughing. Buck heard it and laughed wildly again. This time he laughed so hard that he sat on the ground with his armor clang and he lost all the strength to get up. Seeing the time, Lin Xiaobai ran away without looking back and rushed out of the alley. Those guys were still smiling like fools from behind, and they couldn't catch up. He ran away and confirmed that no one had followed him, so he sat on the road, gasping for breath. His brain was full of the strange scene. Goddess? Blessings? What's this? He said to himself. After he finished speaking, the voice of Lily's silly came out again. Oh, don't be confused. I'm a goddess who is just a little bitch. I'll pick you, and give you special abilities. How about it, are you happy? Lin Xiaobai twitched the corner of his mouth and complained, it's so good, but this ability is too weird, right? It makes people laugh. What's the skill? Can you give me a good deal, such as hitting a mountain with one punch? You are so beautiful. I have carefully selected this ability, so as to ensure that you turn bad luck into good luck. Lily's voice was filled with disdain. Besides, how good is a smile? It can save your life and awesome, perfect. Lin Xiaobai rolled his eyes without saying a word and said, okay, we'll talk about it. But why did you, the goddess, complain? Can you rely on the points and give practical suggestions or something? Suggestion? Okay, let's live first. Lily smiled. Duke Carl is not a good guy. It won't be long before this matter will be transmitted to his ears. You'd better find a place to hide, and don't wait to be caught back and get mad. Scared? Lin Xiaobai was excited and jumped up and patted the soil on his body. Okay, can't I run away? But I'm not familiar with this broken place, where can I hide? As he was speaking, an honest voice suddenly came from beside him. Hey, brother, you are running in a hurry, what's going on? Who is chasing me? Lin Xiaobai turned his head and saw a big head over 2 meters tall, wearing torn leather armor, holding a big axe in his hand, and an honest smile on his face. This man looked like a warrior, with dark skin, bulging muscles like hills, and his eyes were as pure as children. My name is Ada. I am a soldier nearby. I just passed by. I see you are quite despicable. Why don't you follow me? Daquan slapped his head and grinned, although I don't have much money, I can protect you. Lin Xiaobai looked at this man and felt that it was a bit unreliable, but there was no other choice at the moment, so he could only point his head. Okay, thank you, brother Ah. My name is Lin Xiaobai. I just offended Duke Car's subordinates. I guess they will have to look for me in the city soon. Duke Carl? That old bastard? As soon as Ada heard it, his eyes glared like a copper-shaped man. There are no good things in his men. They often bully us soldiers without backgrounds. Brother, don't worry, with me, if you dare to move you, I will chop him with an axe. Lin Xiaobai heard this and felt a little bit in his heart, but he couldn't help but whisper, Hey, Ada, you are so powerful, but why don't your brain look so bright? If you are hanging with me, you will still be tired of you. Ha ha. Why are you tired? I like to make friends. Ada heard it and laughed even more stupidly, but suddenly the laughter became louder and louder. Finally, he squatted down with his stomach and laughed. No, brother, why are you so funny? Your brain is not so bright, ha ha ha. When Lin Xiaobai saw that Lima reacted and patted his brain helplessly, okay, it's this broken blessing again. Lily, can you turn on this function? I was laughing when I chatted with my friends, what's going on? I can't keep it up, just behave. Lily's voice brought a happy smile. I'll say, what's wrong with it? Smile, it's great if you're 10 years old. Lin Xiaobai rolled his eyes and couldn't talk to this unreliable goddess. He turned to Ada, okay, don't smile, let's go, find a place to hide, don't be caught by Buck. Ada finally stopped laughing, so he clicked a little and took Lin Xiaobai to the outside of the town. On the way, he started chatting with Lin Xiaobai, saying that he was an orphan and had been dependent on being a soldier since he was a child. Although he was very powerful, his brain was not very good and he was often deceived. But, brother, I tell you, this Kaza mainland is not simple. Ada Shu said in a low voice, mysteriously, I heard that there are ancient magic traps hidden from the mainland, with many magical artifacts and treasures in it. Whoever can find one can turn over overnight, even Duke Care has to kneel down and call him Dad. Lin Xiaobai heard it and suddenly felt a sudden change in his heart. Magical tragedy? Artifact? Why does this sound like the ultimate copy in a game? Although he is just a little waste, if he can get some good things, he will be able to turn over and hit his face and help the guy who looks down on him. Duh, how much do you know about this miserable thing? Lin Xiaobai couldn't help asking, his eyes flashing. Not much. I heard people say that when we leave the forest, there seems to be a remote threat. Ada snatched his head, but that place is very dangerous, with a lot of monsters, and ordinary people will die if they go in. Lin Xiaobai grinned and began to count. Send to death? That's not necessarily true. Although his blessing is strange, it can help his life at any moment. Maybe he can really make some achievements in that fate. Ada, why don't we team up and explore the forest? He tried to ask, with some expectations in his language. Ada was stunned, then grinned and patted his chest. Okay. Brother, you have the burden, I like it. Let's go to the forest to see if you can order good things. Lin Xiaobai felt excited when he looked at Ada's refreshing look. Although the future is unclear, at least we have a goal and a reliable brother. He glanced at the dark clouds around the sky and muttered, Duke Carl, Buck, you wait. One day, I, Lin Xiaobai, make you kneel down and scream with a smile. Behind him, Lily's voice sounded softly again, Yuan, Xiaowu Chai, you have a lot of ambitions. Then let's go and see what you can get. Lin Xiaobai ignored her, clenched her fists and walked out of the town with Ada, her brain full of fantasies about the magic. Lin Xiaobai and Ada left the town and developed towards the transitive forest. As the sun sets, the two of them walk on the muddy path, surrounded by wilderness, and occasionally they can hear the sound of strange birds coming from afar, which makes people feel angry. Duh, are you sure there are really magical threads in this forest? Lin Xiaobai couldn't help asking, stepping on a stone under his feet, almost falling a dog to bite the mud. He rubbed his legs, his face full of doubts, don't hold on until the time comes, and put himself in. Ada carried the big axe and grinned, don't worry, brother. I heard the veteran soldiers say that this forest is called the Blackthorn Forest, and there are indeed strange things in it. Many adventurers have never come back after entering, but there are also a few good-looking ones who bring some weird things and sell a big price. Those who haven't come back are probably hanging. Lin Xiaobai muttered, his brain full of pictures of the game that were tortured to pieces by the dungeon. But when I think about it, I have at least the weird blessings of Lily, and I can save my life when I am intimate, so I should not be a car. Just as he was thinking, a low smile suddenly came from the side. Hey, Xiao Wuchai, what are you afraid of? I am here, I can't stop it. Lily's voice came out again, with some habitual comments, in other words, don't you want to dominate the world? You're afraid of this little forest. How can you hit Duke Carl in the future? It is the goal to dominate the world, but you have to live first. Lin Xiaobai rolled his eyes and complained in a low voice, can you give some practical suggestions like this, goddess? For example, what's wrong in the forest? How to deal with it? Don't just laugh at me with your mouth. Suggestion? Okay, don't run around after you go in, just listen to me. Lily smiled, her voice was a little mysterious, there is indeed a trace of the Blackthorn Forest, but where is it? I have to see the place to tell you. In short, don't worry and move forward. Lin Xiaobai curled his lips and ignored her. He turned to Ada, let's speed up and go to the forest before dark, otherwise it will be even more dangerous at night. At the same time, the two of them accelerated and finally arrived at the entrance of the Blackthorn Forest before the night fell. The forest in front of me is covered with black pressure, the trees are tall and dense, and the branches are full of sharp thorns, which looks like a natural barrier from afar. The wind blew over, and the leaves rustled, revealing an indescribable sensation. How come this place looks like a ghostly scene? Lin Xiaobai swallowed, his heart bulged, but his mouth was still hard. Ada, let's go in. Don't be too slow, fight quickly. Ada patted his chest and said indifferently, okay. With me here, you have to kneel down whenever you come. Brother, please follow me. As he said, he carried the axe and walked in with great strides. Lin Xiaobai followed with his skin and stepped into the forest. He was covered in cold air and suddenly had goosebumps on his body. The light around was dim, and the feet were covered with rotten leaves and mud. After walking a few steps, I felt something was catching in the dark, making people's backs sway. Ada, do you feel that it's a bit inconsistent? Lin Xiaobai asked in a low voice, aiming around his eyes, holding a thick, squinting branch in his hand, as a temporary weapon. What's wrong with it? Isn't it just a little bit dark? Before Ada finished speaking, a low growl suddenly came from the front, and then a few black shadows emerged from the bushes, which were astonishing as they rushed into two people. Candle, what's the matter? Lin Xiaobai was shocked and looked closely. He saw that the wolf-shaped monsters with sharp teeth and claws were waving. His eyes were green and saliva was dripping in his mouth, which looked extremely hungry. Blackthorn wolf. Brother, hide behind me. Ada shouted, stood up in front of Lin Xiaobai, raised his axe and chopped the wolf. The axe blade held the sound of the hoo-hoo, and the blood suddenly slammed the ground. The wolf howled and fell to the ground. But the other wolves did not retreat at all, but instead rushed up even more crazy, heading straight for Lin Xiaobai, Zhang Kai's bloody mouth, and was about to bite his neck. Don't come. Lin Xiaobai was so panicked that his brain twitched and let out, Hey, brother wolf, your teeth are so good, why don't you use toothpaste to endorse the wolf? The voice fell and a strange scene happened. The blackthorn wolf that had crossed over actually froze in the air. Then it made a strange cry like a laugh. It fell to the ground, its four claws twitched to the sky, and its mouth also sounded like it was a ho-ho-ho sound, as if it was caught in an evil spirit. The wolves next to them were not much better. After hearing this, they stopped and started to slam, laughing so hard that they couldn't even lift their claws. When Ada saw this, he was stunned for a moment, and then laughed, Brother, why is your mouth so poisonous? Even wolves can laugh. Lin Xiaobai wiped his cold sweat and said in his heart that this blessing was really absent, but now it was not the time to be stunned. He hurriedly shouted, Ada, take advantage of the moment, kill them. Ada responded and lifted the axe and solved all the blackthorn wolf, who was so angry that he couldn't help but smile. The ground was stained with blood and the surroundings finally calmed down, but neither of them was relaxed. Who knew if there was any other monster hiding in the dark? Brother, you are so awesome in your ability. You can make the wolf smile by speaking. Ada panted and looked at Lin Xiaobai with admiration. If it weren't for you, we would probably have been bitten a few times. Don't tell me, I feel that I'm so sensible. Lin Xiaobai slapped his hand and complained, but he still felt quite happy in his heart. After all that scene, he had the pleasure of crushing his IQ. But before he could be more proud, a rapid pace suddenly came from afar, and several people shouted, Hurry! Just ahead, the waste must have run into the forest. Lin Xiaobai's face changed and he said in a low voice, Damn, the subordinates of Duke Carr, the old guy, are coming soon. He turned to look at Ada, and said in a low voice, We are running tightly, we can't fight head-on with them. At the big head, the two men stood up and drew to the deep forest, and took as light as possible, trying to get rid of the pursuers behind them. But the terrain of this blackthorn forest is complex, full of thorns and mud. After walking for a few steps, it was turned into a skewer and sloppy, and the steps behind it are getting closer and closer. Here! Lin Xiaobai, you can't escape. A familiar voice came, it was Buck. The guy was covered in his face, holding a stick in his hand, and catching up with several subordinates with aura, which seemed to be full of anger. Lin Xiaobai's heart sank. He knew that he could not escape, so he could only grit his teeth and stop and turn to face this helper. Ada also stood beside him, holding the axe tightly, and preparing to fight at any time. Single, Brother Buck, I'm here again. Lin Xiaobai insisted on dressing up and smiled, What's the matter? I haven't laughed at you yet. I'll come and listen to a few more jokes? Buck snorted coldly, his face turned blue. Younger, I was fooled by you last time. I see what else you have like this. Brothers, give it to me and wipe him out. Several subordinates rushed up, and the sword in their hands flashed with cold light, and they were about to cut Lin Xiaobai. His brain flew quickly, and Lima shouted, "Wait! Dear brothers, listen to me before you start. Do you know why Boss Buck always wears this armor? Because he is afraid of revealing his flesh. He will show his timidity when he reveals his flesh, haha." As soon as this happened, several subordinates were stunned for a moment, and then they made a pop sound, laughing, and the weapons in their hands were unable to hold them. They squatted on the ground with their stomachs and laughed wildly. Buck himself couldn't help it. His face was so red that he was suffocating, and he was bastard in his mouth, but he still couldn't help laughing. The iron stick fell directly to the ground, making him laugh so hard that he couldn't straighten his waist. Go! Lin Xiaobai saw this, and Lima pulled a duh and ran away. While helping others were so tired that they could not laugh, he quickly dribbled into the deep forest. Buck's roar came from behind, "Don't run! When I catch you, I will definitely destroy your skin." The two ran away until they decided that no one had caught up, and stopped and gasped. Lin Xiaobai leaned against a tree and wiped his sweat, muttering in his mouth, "Although this blessing is weird, it is really useful and can be resolved even if you chase and kill." Ada also grinned, "Brother, you are really not a fool. But we have to be careful, so Buck probably won't be good at slack, and there will definitely be tough battles in the future." As he was speaking, Lin Xiaobai suddenly heard the sound of Lily's silk in his ears. This time, the language was not as squint as usual, but instead he was carrying a point. "Little waste, don't waste time, go to the left, there is a secret path that can lead to the entrance to the road." Absolute entrance? Really fake? Lin Xiaobai's eyes lit up, and his heart was excited. Lima said to Ada, "Let's go to the left, and you may find something good." Ada didn't ask much, so he followed Lin Xiaobai to the left. The road was narrower, with thorns around it, making people's faces full of small holes, but neither of them stopped and held a wave of shoving forward. After walking for about half an hour, a clearing suddenly appeared in front of him. A huge stone tablet stood in the middle of the clearing, filled with strange runes that I couldn't understand, and a faint blue light radiated. There is a dark hole next to the stone tablet, like the entrance to a certain underground passage, which is irritating, and it makes people feel angry at the glance. Is this the scattered entrance? Lin Xiaobai stared at the stone tablet blankly, his heart beating fast, and his brain was full of fantasies about the sect and the artifact. Lily's voice sounded again, with a smile on her face, "It's right, little waste, this is the magical entrance deep in the Blackthorn Forest. But I remind you that the inside is not that simple, the danger is 10 times greater than the outside. Are you ready?" Lin Xiaobai swallowed, looked at Ada next to him, and saw his face full of excitement, so he gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. "I'm ready for a while, I'll be done. The treasure is hidden in front, who are you afraid?" As he said, he took a deep breath and walked towards the dark hole step by step. Lin Xiaobai and Ada stood in front of the dark hole, and the wind blew out from the inside, as if someone was whispering softly, making people's skin numb. The stone walls around the entrance of the cave were covered with moss, and the blue light on the stone tablet flickered, adding a few differences to this place. "Brother, this hole doesn't look awesome. Do we really want to go in?" Ada carried the big axe, and his voice was a little hesitant. Although he was very powerful, he felt furious in his heart. Lin Xiaobai gritted his teeth and said with a hard temper, "What are you afraid of? Hunting is right in front of you. If you go in and win, we can turn over. Besides, can Duke Carr catch up at any time, and he can't wait to be arrested if he doesn't go in?" In fact, he was also panicked, but thinking that he had Lily's blessing, he wouldn't just throw it away, so he just gave up. "Hey, little Wuchai, you're pretty stingy." Lily's voice sounded in his brain, teasing, "But I can remind you that the connections and monsters in the sky don't eat your jokes. Don't expect to be able to get in just by mouth. Listen to me, be careful after going in, don't touch them." "I understand, don't keep talking." Lin Xiaobai muttered in a low voice, then turned to Ada, "Let's go, let's take care of each other." If something happens, I'll fool you, come and chop. Ada grinned and patted his chest. Okay. With me here, you have to kneel down whenever you come. After speaking, he hurriedly walked into the entrance of the cave with his axe. Lin Xiaobai was so nervous that the two of them were quickly swallowed by the darkness. The hole is colder than outside, there is a musty smell in the air, and there is a slippery stone slab under the feet. You have to be careful not to slip after walking for a few steps. The surroundings were terrifyingly quiet, with only the sound of the steps of two people and the occasional dripping echoes. Lin Xiaobai lifted a dead branch from the ground and ignited it as a torch, but the faint flame could only illuminate a few steps away, and the distance was still black. Ada, what have you heard? Lin Xiaobai asked in a short voice, always thinking that something was secretly watching, with a silence on his back neck. It's nothing, just our footsteps. Before Ada finished speaking, a click sound suddenly came from the front, like a silence of friction between the stones. Then the ground shook slightly, and the stone slabs under the feet of the two people actually began to move. Trough, the machine is closed. Lin Xiaobai was shocked, and Lima pulled Ada to the side and hid, and the place where he originally stood collapsed, revealing a deep pit that was invisible. At the bottom of the pit, you could see the sharp stone thorns, flashing with cold light. This is too terrible. If you come in, you will be killed. Lin Xiaobai felt palpitations and patted his chest and gasped. When he turned around, he saw that Ada was not much better. He was covered in cold sweat on his face and almost fell into the pit. Be careful, this place is probably a trap. Lily's voice sounded again, and the words were in the air, let's go to the right, there is a safe road there. Don't step on it, listen to me. Lin Xiaobai couldn't resist and hurriedly said to Ada, let's go to the right. Don't come, there may be pits on the ground. The two of them stuck on the stone wall on the right and moved forward carefully. Sure enough, they didn't touch any trouble, but they were worried every step they took, and felt that something would jump out at any time. After walking for more than 10 meters, a huge stone door suddenly appeared in front of it. The door was full of complex runes and a groove in the center, as if some key was missing. A faint light shone out from the door, making people unable to help but push it open. How does this door open? Don't be upset. This door is probably related to the problem. If it is wrong, we will have to be a stinger. Lin Xiaobai glared at him, and then asked Lily in a low voice, Hey, goddess, what are you doing with this thing? Are there any hints? Lily hummed, her voice was a little impatient, I'm not your nanny by myself. But I'm so sad to see you, so I'll give you a tip. Look at the stone wall next to the door, if there is anything wrong with you. Lin Xiaobai spoke in a speech. He erected the horse and slammed the stone wall with a torch. After a closer look, he found that there were several stones beside the door with a slightly lighter color than the color, and it could still be slightly sunken when pressed. His eyes lit up, as if he had grabbed some thread, and his head turned to Ada. These stones are probably closed, let's try pressing and watching. Okay, listen to you. As the head was pointed, and the two began to study the order of the stones. Lin Xiaobai was experiencing the experience of playing games and brushing copies. He guessed that these stones might have to be touched in a specific order, otherwise they would have to be touched. After several trials, I finally heard the sound of, and the stone door rose slowly, revealing a deeper passage behind it. It's done! Lin Xiaobai slapped his thigh and was so excited, let's continue, Baozong is right in front. But just as the two of them were about to go in, a sudden rush of footsteps came from behind, accompanied by a cold voice, Lin Xiaobai, you run quite fast, but do you think you can get rid of me? Lin Xiaobai's heart skipped a beat. When he turned around, he saw that the fire was swaying from afar. Duke Carl actually followed him with someone. He was wearing black and gold armor, his face was as dark as if it was about to drip water. He held a long sword with a stone inlaid in his hand, and followed by more than a dozen men in full-fitting clothes, blocking the retreat in a blink of an eye. Hand, why are you still not scattering? Lin Xiaobai gritted his teeth and couldn't help but complain, take so many people. Why are you afraid that I will knock you down with a waste of firewood? Duke Carl sneered, his eyes full of murder. Wait. You are a little smart, you can find the entrance to this scattered world. But today, your good fortune is at the forefront. I'm going to settle the artifact here, so who shouldn't try to slap it? Art? Duke, you have a big appetite. Lin Xiaobai deliberately raised his voice, and his brain flew quickly to remove himself, then grinned. But there are so many people under your command, how can you divide the artifact after you get it? Do you plan to swallow it alone and let them work in vain? As soon as this happened, the faces of several subordinates behind Duke Carl changed slightly, and they looked at each other, and their eyes were not full. When Lin Xiaobai saw that there was a scene, Limaga called out, "Hey, brother, how many? I heard me, Boss Car is not a good bird. If you get the treasure, you probably won't be able to get any of the scums. Why not digest it internally and discuss a fair plan now?" Ha ha ha. Internal digestion, I'm so laughing. One of the men couldn't help but laughed and squatted down with his stomach. The other few were not much better. They laughed so hard that they threw their weapons to the ground and beat them up. Duke Carl's face was green and he roared, "Close your mouth. Who will laugh again? I will chop who." But his threat was useless at all, and his subordinates laughed even harder, and two of them even smiled so hard that they pushed each other, and the scene was in a mess for a while. Go! Lin Xiaobai saw this, and Lima pulled Ada into the passage behind the stone gate, and ran forward without looking back. The roar of Duke Carl came from behind, "Catch them! Don't let this waste run away." The interior of the passage is narrower, and the stone walls on both sides are full of ancient wall paintings, painting some incomprehensible battle scenes, and can easily identify a huge figure, holding a magical artifact, and stepping on thousands of troops. Lin Xiaobai ran around and looked at it, and he felt more and more that this was not simple, and his brain was full of fantasies about magical artifacts. "Lily, is there any other mechanism in front of me? Don't let us go over the car while running." Lin Xiaobai gasped and asked in a low voice. "Don't worry, there are no traps ahead at a while, but you have to find a fork in the road. The old man Carl is about to catch up with you." Lily's voice was calm. "Walking to the third intersection on the left, there is a hidden stone chamber that can hide at any time." Lin Xiaobai pointed his head and pulled Ada to the third intersection on the left according to the instructions. Sure enough, he found an inconspicuous small door behind a stone wall. After being pushed open, there was a small stone chamber. There were only a few old stone platforms with some runes engraved on the table. "Brother, can we hide here?" Ada panted and asked in a low voice, holding the tight axe and preparing to fight at any time. "It has to be tried whether it works or not. It's better than being caught directly." Lin Xiaobai whispered in a low voice, then approached the stone platform, tried to study the runes on it, and thought that there might be some secrets hidden in this place. While studying, Lily's voice suddenly rose, with a hint of excitement. "One little waste, the air is good. This stone chamber is one of the control centers of the storm. The runes on the platform can activate some of the machines, which is just right for Duke Carl." "Really and false? How to activate it?" Lin Xiaobai's eyes lit up and Lima asked. "Press and hold the rune in the middle, inject some mental power, remember not to get in trouble, otherwise you can't stand the backlash," Lily reminded. Although Lin Xiaobai didn't understand what mental power was, he still held the rune hard, closed his eyes and focused, and tried to see what he felt. Unexpectedly, a few seconds later, the rune suddenly lit up red light, and the back stone chamber shook lightly, and a rose sound came from the remote passage, as if something had been touched. "It's done." Lin Xiaobai looked at him with a slight look and said to Ada, "It's probably the trap has started, and Carl has to suffer a little." Sure enough, not long after, there were a lot of cry and spells coming from the passage. It was obvious that Duke Carl's men were caught in the trap and formed a group. Lin Xiaobai heard it and couldn't help but mutter, "Hand, let's play slowly, Baozong won't wait for you." But before he could be proud for too long, a roar suddenly came from outside the stone room. "Lin Xiaobai, I know you are here, don't think you can escape by playing a little bit of cleverness." Duke Carl's voice became closer and closer, and he was obviously not completely trapped by the controller. he took several subordinates and directly killed him to the door of the stone room. Boke, this old guy is so lucky. Lin Xiaobai's heart sank and hurriedly said to Ada, if you are ready to fight, you have to delay time if you can't stand it. Ada pointed his head, pulled out the stand, held the tight axe and stared at the door. Lin Xiaobai was flying in the stone chamber, and then looked for some useful links or cables, and the brain was crazy about calculating the plan of slack off. Lily, are there any tricks? I'm really going to kill myself this time. He shouted in a low voice, sweating almost coming down. Don't panic. There is a small groove on the right side of the stone platform. If you insert any hard objects, you can turn on the guardrail again. You can drag it for a while. Lily's voice was still cold, but I remind you that Carr is not simple, and he has a bodyguard. Generally, the machine cannot control him. You'd better think about what to do next. Lin Xiaobai gritted his teeth, and tilted the stone from the ground and inserted it into a small groove. Sure enough, he heard a click sound. A iron column suddenly dropped from the entrance of the stone chamber door, accompanied by several crossbow arrows shot out from the gap in the wall, heading straight to the crowd outside the door. Ah! A few voices came from outside the door, and it was obvious that his subordinates were hit, but Duke Carl's voice was still determined, little man. Break this iron door and grab that waist. The iron siege column was hit violently, and it was a huge bang-bang. Lin Xiaobai knew that this thing would not last long and had to search for a way to escape. He swept deep into the ice stone chamber and found a crack on the stone wall behind, which could lead to a different place. Lima said to Ada, "Go, there is a road behind, let's retreat." The two quickly diamonded into the crack, and there was a narrower passage inside, which could barely allow one person to pass through, and ran away, but at least he left the pursuers behind him. After running for a few minutes, the front suddenly opened and a huge underground hall appeared. A high-pitched sacrificial fort is set up in the center of the sacrificial fort. A bead with golden light floated on it. The air around it is slightly distorted due to its existence, emitting a force that makes people palpitations. The sacrificial priest was full of runes, and there were several skulls on the ground, as if they had been here by adventurers, but in the end they could not take away the treasure. Is this a magical tool? Lin Xiaobai's eyes widened, his heart beats like a drum, and his brain was full of financial reversals. It's right, Xiao Wu Chai, this is the ancient artifact at the core of the celestial core, the core of heaven. Lily's voice brought a rare severity. It can give the holder unlimited power, but only if you have to pass the sacrificial examination, otherwise don't even want to touch it. Exam? What exam? Lin Xiaobai was stunned and was about to ask again, but suddenly there was a sound of footsteps coming from behind. Duke Carl actually caught up with him again. His armor was covered with scratches. It was obvious that the machine just now made him suffer a little, but the greed in his eyes became even more intense. He stared at the beads on the sacrificial priests, and the corners of his mouth were almost grinning to the ears. Lin Xiaobai, this artifact is mine, who don't want to slap it? Duke Carl sneered and signaled that only a few subordinates left behind him had surrounded him. The longsword pointed directly at Lin Xiaobai. Take the secret you know, maybe I can save your life. Leave your life? Old man, why don't you say I'm going to be your son? Lin Xiaobai said nothing, and his brain was flying in the speed plate. He knew that if he could not with jokes this time, he had to fight head-on, and the artifact on the sacrificial house might be the only chance to turn around. Ada, hold them back, I'll try this for him. Lin Xiaobai said to Ada in a low voice, then took a deep breath and rushed towards the forum. The roar of Duke Carl and Ada's fighting voice were intertwined, making the entire hall full of a tight atmosphere. Lin Xiaobai's heart beats like a drumbeat, and his pace has not stopped. He has taken several big steps to the fort. The core of heaven floating in the air was emitting golden light. When you look closely, there seemed to be countless small light spots flowing in it, as if there were hidden secrets of the entire world. He reached out to grab it, but before he could touch it, an invisible force pushed him open, almost falling a dog to bite the mud. Collection, is this thing still in a foul system? Lin Xiaobai rubbed his arm, couldn't help but complain, and then shouted in a low voice, "Lily, don't sell the secrets, why did you pass this exam? The old guy behind is about to kill him." Lily's voice sounded in his brain, with a smile, "What's the hurry? This sacrificial test is your willpower. Standing in the rune circle in the center, close your eyes and concentrate, and avoid being affected by external interference. But I can remind you that Guy Carl will not wait for you to take the exam slowly, and move quickly." "Willpower? I'm good at this." Lin Xiaobai gritted his teeth and glanced at him. He only saw Dajing fighting with Duke Carl's men with a big axe. Every time the axe blade was slashed, it brought a bloody flower. However, there were too many enemies, and he was hit by several knives, with blood flowing down his arms, which made people feel heartbroken. "Ada, hold on. I'll get this right away." Lin Xiaobai yelled, then stood in the rune circle in the center of the sacrificial fort, took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and tried to concentrate. But the sound of fighting behind him, Duke Carl's roar, and even the smell of blood in the air were like a memorial that hit his brain, making him unable to calm down at all. "Lin Xiaobai, do you think you can take away the artifact by hiding here? Make a dream." Duke Carl's voice became closer and closer, with a cold killing, "When I kill your silly big follower, you will be the next one." As soon as this happened, Lin Xiaobai felt nervous and almost broke down, and his eyes were almost open. But at this time, Lily's voice sounded again, and she was rarely distracted. "Don't be distracted. Once the exam is interrupted, you will have all your previous efforts. Believe in Ada, and believe in yourself, and feel the call of the magical artifact." Lin Xiaobai bit his teeth tightly and held back his eyes. He forced himself to not think about the battle behind him, but focused on the strange power emitted by the sacrificial fortification. Rarely, he felt a warm energy rise from his feet, flowing all over his body, and a vast starry sky suddenly appeared in the sea of brain, with countless sounds whispering in his ears, as if asking him why he was fighting. "Why are you fighting? Of course, it's just to turn over and hit the face." Lin Xiaobai thought silently in his heart. The humiliation that he had suffered since his time traveling through the brain was ridiculed by the town to being chased and killed by Duke Carl's subordinates. Every scene was engraved in his heart like a knife. "I don't want to be trampled under my feet all the time. I want those who look down on me to shut their mouths." Just as the thought came out, the sound in the starry sky suddenly stopped, and then a powerful force suddenly poured into his body. Lin Xiaobai only felt that his whole body was hit by current, and suddenly opened his eyes, realizing that he had been wrapped in a layer of golden light, and the core of heaven's enlightenment was slowly flying to him, as if he had recognized his determination. "It's done." Lin Xiaobai was stunned for a moment, then was ecstatic, and reached out to hold the treasure bead. In an instant, he felt an indescribable force flowing into his body, as if the whole person had been reshaped, and his muscles and bones were making a click sound, and his power was full of power. "Ha ha ha! I finally got back." He couldn't help but yelling to the sky, and the sound shocked the stone blocks on the top of the hall, and then turned around and looked at the battlefield. At this time, Ada had been forced to the corner of the wall, his body was covered in wounds, panting, and he was reluctant to lean against the axe and squeezing his body. Duke Carl, carrying the last few subordinates, was approaching step by step, with a smile on his face. "Lin Xiaobai, the game is over, your followers are about to die, where can you hide?" "Hide? Old man, you're afraid you haven't woken up." Lin Xiaobai grinned, holding the core of heaven with a slight force, and the golden light on his body was magnificent. He took another step and appeared in front of Ada in an instant, with the speed so fast that his naked eyes could not keep up. "Brother, you..." Ada looked at him blankly. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Lin Xiaobai raising his hand, and an invisible force directly shocked several approaching subordinates, smashing them hard on the stone wall, and fainted when he vomited blood. Duh, let's leave, let's hand it over to me next." Lin Xiaobai patted his shoulder, then turned to look at Duke Carl, his eyes full of picking. "Her guy, weren't you always saying I was a wasteland before?" Duke Carl's face darkened. It was obvious that Lin Xiaobai could get the artifact, but he quickly sneered and tightened his sword. "What if you get the artifact? How much strength can you use with a waste of firewood? I have to kill you today. As he said, he suddenly rushed up, and the long sword pierced Lin Xiaobai's heart with a cold light. His speed was amazing, and he was obviously moving. But Lin Xiaobai didn't hide at all. He slammed the corner of his mouth and slapped his hand. A golden wave of light burst out from the core of heaven in his hand, which directly shocked Duke Car's bandit, hitting the stone wall on the other end of the hall, smashing a big pit. Ahem. Duke Car got up, spitting out a mouthful of blood from his mouth. His face turned blue. It was obvious that Lin Xiaobai's real strength would explode to this point. But he's still dissatisfied and gritted his teeth and shouted, "Little mischief, don't be proud, I will definitely win this magical artifact." "My dear? Come on, old man, you're so frugal when you stand up now, and you're still stubborn?" Lin Xiaobai laughed and deliberately dragged his voice. "Why would I give you a joke to relieve the atmosphere? I heard that you chased a female soldier when you were young, but they thought you were too weak and beat you down on the spot. What's the matter? Is this true?" As soon as this happened, Duke Carl's face was twisted, his body trembling with anger, and his mouth was shaking. "Close your mouth. You bastard." But when he was fucking, he suddenly scrolled and couldn't help laughing. Then he laughed more and more and more. He squatted down with his stomach, and even the sword in his hand fell to the ground. "Ha ha ha, old man, you have today too." Lin Xiaobai looked at him with a smile, feeling very happy, but his subordinates were merciless. He took advantage of this opportunity to rush over with a quick step, lifted his fist, infused the power of the core of heaven, and punched Duke Carl in the chest. Bang! With a loud noise, Duke Carl's armor was smashed directly, his chest was sunken, and his whole person flew out like a broken wind. He could never get up on the stone wall. He vomited blood in his mouth, and his eyes finally showed fear. How could you? How is that possible? Old man, this is called Tian Dao Rot. Lin Xiaobai smiled coldly, stood up straight, and looked at him with his head down. How did you bully me in the past? Today I will double down and come back. From now on, no one dares to underestimate me, Lin Xiaobai again in Kaza. Duke Car wanted to say something, but in the end he turned his head and fainted. The remaining subordinates around him had already felt so scared that they knelt down and begged, "Great! Sir, let's beg you for life. We were forced to. Please live? Okay, go back and tell your classmates, who dares to provoke me, Lin Xiaobai again, Duke Car will be the detachment." Lin Xiaobai waved his hand, and the golden light burst out again, directly shaking these people out of the hall and disappearing into the depth of the passage. The entire hall finally calmed down, leaving only Lin Xiaobai and Ada. Ada leaned against the wall, panting, and grinned, "Brother, you are so awesome. I just saw that punch and I was so excited. I can be considered turning over now." "Flip over? That's just the beginning." Lin Xiaobai smiled, holding the core of heaven in his hand, feeling the continuous power in his body. His brain was full of plans for the future. From today on, we not only have to turn over, but also let the entire castle know that waste firewood can dominate the world. As he was speaking, a wave suddenly appeared in the air, and then a familiar figure appeared slowly, with long hair flying, and a faint light radiated on his body. It was Lily. She looked at Lin Xiaobai with a smile. Her lingering voice was filled with chanting, "Yeah, little waste, it's been a good thing. She actually took down the artifact. I thought you had to flip the car." "Car? Just kidding, with you, the goddess who is not reliable, how could I go around?" Lin Xiaobai rolled his eyes, but he couldn't help laughing. "But seriously, thank you, Lily, I guess I'd been killed by that old guy long ago without you helping you. I don't need to thank you. I'm so excited anyway." Lily slammed her hand, and then she became more excited. "I got the magic weapon. You are the strongest existence in Kaza. What are you going to do next? Continue to waste the firewood in a small town? Is it still as you said, dominating the world? Wan Chai? That's not my style." Lin Xiaobai grinned and turned to the entrance of the main hall, with confidence in his eyes. "I want those who once laughed at me to see how awesome I, Lin Xiaobai, From today on, it's my stage. A few days later, on a huge platform, Lin Xiaobai was wearing a golden robe and holding the core of heaven, standing above thousands of people, looking down at the dense crowd below. Beside him, Ada was carrying a big axe, smiling silly, like a loyal guardian. Among the crowd below were merchants who had swept his wastewood on the town, soldiers who were like a desolate soldier, and even Duke Karl's subordinates. At this moment, they were all lowering their heads without exception, their eyes filled with awe, and they would never dare to say a word again. Did you hear it? This is the Lin Xiaobai who came out of the small town. He took down the magic weapon and fucked Duke Karl down. That's right, who could have thought that the boy who was bullied by others at the beginning has now become the strongest existence in the mainland? The crowd argued, but Lin Xiaobai just smiled faintly and held the core of heaven in his hand, and the sound spread across the scene. From today, Kaza is no longer a place where the strong bully the weak. Who dares to act evilly and who dares to bully others, I, Lin Xiaobai, will be the first one. Remember, I am not Wu Chai, I am your new master. As soon as this came out, a shocking cry broke out across the scene, and countless people shouted his name, and the sound was swaying from the sky. Lin Xiaobai stood on the platform, feeling all this, and a satisfying smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In his ears, Lily's voice sounded again, and he teased with a little teasing, "What's the feeling of dominating the world? Isn't it so good?" "It's good." "That's not." Lin Xiaobai responded in a low voice, then looked at the sky far away, and murmured, "But this just started. Next, I will turn this vast land into a real legend." As the sun sets west, golden light is on him, as if crowning this new king. From this moment on, Casa Mainland ushered in a new era, an era belonging to Lin Xiaobai.